theropod dinosaurs might have been the dominant land predators of their era, but how would they fare in a world ruled by mammals? This video takes theropods from North America and analyzes how they would survive from the Paleocene epoch to the Ice Age. Specifically, we'll explore 4 major challenges that theropods would face in the Cenozoic era: the rodent problem, the mammoth problem, the weather problem, and the human problem. We'll bring thousands of theropods from their era and drop them into different periods of the Cenozoic to see how they might adapt and survive. First, we have the agro group, theropods specializing in mid-sized to small prey. Though not megatheropods, they're iconic and deserve a spot here. Deinonychus belongs to this category along with its larger relative, Utahraptor. Ceratosaurus, a giant but by modern predator standards, also fits into the agro group, weighing in at 500 to 700 kilograms. Next are the mid-range players. These theropods aren't just hunting small prey, they're capable of taking down large animals. The perfect example here is Allosaurus, leading a group of Tyrannosaurids including Albertosaurus, Teratophonius daspletosaurus, Lythronax, and Nanoxaurus, if valid, blending speed and power. The rest of the team falls into the battlecruiser level. Predators the Cenozoic would consider demons. Seat's Microrum might belong here, though its size and exact classification remain a mystery. Solid additions include Torvosaurus tanneri, one of Morrison's terrors, Acrocanthosaurus atokensis, the sail-backed Carcharodontosaurid that roamed the continent, Saurophaganax maximus, the giant allosaurid that hunted Jurassic sauropods, Tyrannosaurus macraensis, the southern tyrant, and Tyrannosaurus rex, the king lizard. North America, recovering from the asteroid impact, was warm and temperate, covered in dense forests. Global average temperatures hovered around 24 to 25 degrees Celsius, similar to much of the Mesozoic, with flowering plants being common. The Paleocene was actually quite diverse, considering the devastating impact of the asteroid. Even large predators emerged, including Ancalagon, the black cough, Ancalagon sorinathus, a bear-sized mesonychid from New Mexico. There was a trend of bear and wolf-like predators from various families, including Arctocyon, Paleonyctus, and Trachodon. Mammals quickly evolved predators on the scale of today's largest land carnivores, but they never got significantly larger. At least in the Paleocene, it didn't make sense to get bigger. The food supply simply wasn't there. Early primate relatives didn't provide much incentive to grow large, and even the largest animals of that period, like the 300 kilograms Uintathere probathiopsis, wouldn't support predators on a grander scale. Peripticus, a cat-sized omnivore, and Psittacotherium, a dog-sized burrower, offered some snack options but weren't easy to catch. The lack of a food supply that prevented giant mammalian predators from evolving would be a significant thorn in the side of the invading theropods. Many invading theropods were already larger than any animal in the Paleocene and would have the metabolic demands to match. The dense forests covering North America wouldn't offer much room to maneuver, which would be both a curse and a blessing. The theropods would be cramped, but it would also make ambushes much easier for the team. Probathiopsis would become the equivalent of a Happy Meal, with a relatively large body size and lack of weaponry, but still too small to sustain anything Allosaurus-sized or larger. Selective pressures would force theropods to downsize and increase agility to succeed in the dense forest. Agro-dinosaurs, especially dromaeosaurs, were already perfectly sized to take advantage of the available food and would likely become the dominant predators in the region. Some might develop adaptations for burrowing or climbing to pursue challenging mammals. Agrotheropods would dominate as apex predators, thriving on native populations while their larger teammates starved. Next, we move into the Eocene, spanning 32 million years and fluctuating between 23 to 28 degrees Celsius. Forests began to resemble the diversity we see today, with plants like maple, elm, birch, and cherry appearing, and the warm climate allowed large ectotherms like crocodiles to spread as far north as Canada and Alaska. The late Eocene saw a temperature drop and a contraction of forested areas, opening up plains and grasslands across the continent while remaining quite warm. And what about prey and competition? Luckily, the Eocene offered a much more extensive menu for the theropod team. Early beavers, while not ideal prey for land-adapted hunters, were still awesome and worth mentioning. For actual diets, the Eocene had sheep-sized artiodactyl herbivores like Agriotherium, perfect for smaller dromaeosaurs. Entelodonts and pseudohippos emerged, and though potentially dangerous, their 200 kilograms bodies would be snacks for most invaders. Wintotheres and Brontotheres, including Eobacilius, Wintotherium, and Megacerops, ranged from 2 to nearly 4 tons. These were the perfect size for mid-range and battlecruiser theropods who were used to tackling horned dinosaurs, hadrosaurs, and small sauropods. These rhino-like animals were also not as heavily armed as the dinosaurs their new enemies had hunted, and would have no experience fighting predators their size or larger. They would be appetizers, and many more appetizers would include tapir relatives, heptodon, camel relatives, heteromeryx, and hornless rhinos, subhiracodon. The first horses, Haplohippus, Epihippus, were a curiosity. They were designed for speed and not large enough for most theropods to pursue. The only invaders likely to catch them would be mid-range and subadult tyrannosaurs, whose leg bone speed formula would yield speeds of 36 miles per hour. However, they might not bother, as the meat yield would be much higher from slower, larger options. In terms of competition, the Eocene was less generous. There were amphicyonids, or bear dogs, still too small to take on any theropod larger than Deinonychus. The same goes for hynodonts, which maxed out at around 1.5 meters long, Hemipsalodon. They would likely focus on smaller mammals and keep themselves small to avoid dealing with the theropod threat, hiding in the shadows like a flashback to the Mesozoic. The Eocene might cause another body size reduction for theropods to face the relatively small prey. Mid-sized tyrannosaurs would thrive as they represent the perfect blend of speed and power, making species like Albertosaurus and Lythronax the terror of rhino mammals. That would benefit theropods already relatively small and sturdy, so the Eocene would primarily belong to the mid-range members. The next test would be the Oligocene. Running from 34 to 23 million years ago, the weather was a bit cooler than previous periods, with global average temperatures at 22 to 24 degrees Celsius. There was a cooling event early in the Oligocene that prompted the development of ice sheets, followed by gradual warming. Grasslands and prairies became common, allowing for the radiation of large herbivores, a good sign for our theropod friends. Deciduous forests also dominated in the mid-Oligocene, so there was a mix of habitats to adapt to. The more diverse the habitats, the better the hunting opportunities, at least theoretically. The giant mammals of the Eocene had vanished, replaced by rhinos like Dicerotherium, maxing out at a ton. Entelodonts, tapirs, collodon, and amphicyonids were still around, along with the first bears, Cephalogale. Camels resided in North America, and oreodonts, medium-sized, herbivorous mammals, were everywhere. Some lived in herds, making them excellent food choices for smaller theropods. At least the competition didn't get any harsher, except for Thecachampsa, a gharial relative that would menace the waterways. If anything, the Oligocene would be tougher for the theropod team. There was less food for the battle cruisers than before, so holding ground would depend on aggro and mid-range. Again, they would survive and become the dominant large predators, but at the cost of the heaviest members. Mammals still hadn't figured out how to grow large enough to sustain a true megatheropod, starving the dragons rather than fighting them. Those changes happened during the Miocene, running from 23 to 5 million years ago. Cooler than the early Cenozoic, it was only 3 to 4 degrees Celsius, warmer than today. And I know you're excited to see how theropods will handle the dangers of the Ice Age, and so am I. But there are some really important things happening in the Miocene that we need to talk about. Grasslands and open plains expanded, and some mountain building occurred in North America. But I'm talking about the animal innovations that would completely change the competitive landscape. What worked for mammals so far continued to work. Horses, camels, amphibionids, and rhinos were still thriving. Newcomers included the omnivorous Diodon shoshonensis, who has had plenty of time travel shenanigans on this channel, and giant ground sloths, Pliometanastes, 850 kilograms, Phenobodistus, 900 to 1,060 kilograms. But we need to talk about the two biggest obstacles I mentioned at the start of the video, the rodent problem and the elephant problem. First, let's talk about the rodent problem. Genetic evidence points to muroids, the family that includes modern rats, migrating to North America during the Miocene. How would theropods handle these small, fast-breeding mammals eating their eggs and young? While giant reptilian predators are certainly a threat, if you prevent them from growing up in the first place, they never get the chance to solo your ecosystem. It's the whole baby Thanos thing, but with dinosaurs. As Smithsonian writer Riley Black pointed out, this could and probably did happen in the Mesozoic. While we don't yet have direct fossil evidence of mammals or other egg eaters attacking dinosaur nests, we know that small mammals like Mammoths attacked and ate juvenile Psittacosaurus and didn't attack adults. Egg-stealing opponents are nothing new to theropods. Eutriconodonts and triconodonts, early mammals closely related to eutherians, were common in the Jurassic, ranging from the size of a rat to a possum, Gobiconodon, Jugulator, Simalames. And studies show that dinosaur diversity didn't decline significantly before the KPG extinction. While placental mammals had evolved by the late Cretaceous, there was no apparent impact on dinosaur success due to their existence. The best modern analogs for this obstacle are crocodiles, including the American alligator. They are giant reptiles that are still widespread and successful, despite the constant presence of both native and invasive rodent species. Today, there are over 1 million alligators in Florida, despite the existence of egg-eating mammals. Parental protection of eggs and nests is an observed behavior in crocodiles and likely a common behavior in theropods. While some cases of egg damage are inevitable, this was hardly an existential threat to theropods as it's often portrayed. At the other extreme are the elephants, with all the problems that large, intelligent, and social herbivores can represent. Miocene North America ups the ante with players like the shovel-tusked amebelodonts, Amebelodon. Gomphotheres join the roster, long-jawed elephants ranging from 3 to nearly 5 tons, Eubelodon, Gnathobelodon, Gomphotherium. However, most fearsome was the giant American mastodon. It averaged 8 tons with a theoretical maximum of up to 14 tons. African forest elephants would be the best analog to determine how these giant elephants would react to megatheropods, given their large body size and behavior. Would giant predators be effective against them, or would their strength and intelligence be too much? I took a lot of your opinions and thoughts into consideration for this section, so it's very detailed. Get ready. Elephants live in herds led by matriarchs, and these herds can number from 3 to more than a dozen individuals. Males will leave the group when they reach adolescence and either group with other young males or wander alone. They are the kings of modern Africa and tend to go where they want and do what they want. Who would stand up to a 6-ton beast with spears attached to its face? A lion? Please. Well, actually, while elephants are dangerous for lions to attack normally, it does happen. Solitary adult lions can take on elephants twice their size. Some prides even specialize in killing elephants. The pride at Choba National Park killed 74 elephants between 1993 and 1996, and adult elephants, rare though it may be, are still not off the menu. They hunted so many elephants that gentle giants accounted for up to 20% of their diet. A 2009 study found that nearly 40% of elephants at a watering hole chose to flee the area when multiple lion calls were played over a loudspeaker, and over 20% fled from the call of a single lion. Clearly, they recognized the danger to both themselves and their young. Lions had been recorded taking down fully grown adults. Of course, it goes both ways. When lions are not actively hunting, Groups of elephants can disperse entire prides. Mothers stand on the outside in a defensive barrier with the young in the middle, and the matriarchs will charge pride members even if the cats are not being aggressive. Their priority is to prevent attacks and protect the young. While they are the most powerful animals in Africa today, they know they are not invincible. However, bull elephants fully believe they are the most dangerous creatures to ever walk the planet. They are highly aggressive, at least partly due to the pain from swelling temporal glands on their faces, and will attack other animals without provocation. They emit deep rumbles as a warning to other bulls, and these rumbles can be felt from up to 6 kilometers away. When they meet, they often fight and can even break their tusks in the process. They will battle by locking tusks and swiping up and down, pushing each other back and forth until one gives up and runs. A skull wound would be catastrophic. Their skulls are actually thin and filled with honeycomb-like air pockets, making it far more vulnerable to damage than it appears. Elephants may be physically powerful, but their brains are also highly developed. They form strong social bonds and even understand death and mourning, becoming depressed when family members die and visiting grave sites for years afterward. When you have so few young, it makes sense to invest everything you can in them. Female elephants generally give birth every 4 years and typically have only 4 to 5 calves throughout their lives. Mammoths and mastodons may have been similar. As mentioned earlier, the elephants that theropods would encounter ranged from 3 to 8 tons plus over many taxa. We would see niche partitioning based on prey body size among the invading theropods. Larger mid-range players like Daspletosaurus would go after the smaller ones, like Eubelodon. For the mid-sized proboscideans, heavier hitters would be needed. Acrocanthosaurus and most Saurophagoneks would attempt to hunt Ambylodon and Gomphotherium, but might also punch above their weight class, the way we see modern elephants taken down by animals half their size. The largest Saurophagoneks individuals would not object to trying their luck with the giant mastodons, especially since Saurophagoneks has only been found in groups. 30 lions are required to take down a single adult elephant today, and a 5-ton Saurophagoneks weighed the equivalent of 20 large male lions. It seems that if they hunted in packs or participated in group hunts, they would be comfortable with their food options. But the crux of the battle would be the conflict between the American mastodon and Tyrannosaurus, the heaviest hitters on their respective teams. This would determine how the invasion proceeds from here on out. So let's analyze their physicality and then their contrasting behaviors. The two giants are similar in size, with the mastodon averaging 8 tons and maxing out at 14. We don't have enough well-studied specimens to calculate the true average of Tyrannosaurus rex. T. macraensis is a dental species, so who knows. But the smallest confirmed adult, Moore 980, weighed just over 6 tons, and the largest confirmed adult, Scotty, was 10.5, with some fragmentary specimens possibly weighing over 11 tons. On average, T-Rex may be larger, but only by a few hundred kilograms. In contrast, the largest predator that mastodons lived alongside was the Entelodont and Mechaerodonts, maxing out at around 500 kilograms. Even a mediocre Tyrannosaurus would be 16 times larger than the native predators, though it would obviously prefer to pick off smaller mastodons when hunting. It makes no sense to risk too much. What about speed? Modern elephants can move quickly for their size, though reports of those running 40 kilometers per h seem exaggerated. According to Laramendi 2015, the absolute maximum reliably recorded speed is 25 kilometers per h by a 2.8-ton Asian male elephant. The paper notes that most extinct large elephant relatives were likely unable to move quickly due to higher body mass and different limb proportions. They are kind of agile, though, and can turn quickly with their massive size thanks to their compressed body shape. Mastodons were longer and thicker, which would reduce their agility somewhat, and that matters. Tyrannosaurus rex was the most agile of the giant theropods, having evolved to wear down armored, spiked turning tanks in the form of ceratopsians. They needed to be quick and flexible to avoid being speared by spear-sized horns and would prefer to ambush from behind when possible. An upcoming study by paleontologist Kyle Atkins Weltman identifies how Triceratops was extremely agile, so keep an eye out for that. Notably, the SVP 2023 abstract suggests that the linear speed of T-Rex has been underestimated in the past. New 3D model outputs 23.3 kilometers per h, 14.5 miles per hour, and ligament analysis may raise that further in future trials. Weaponry is a theropod exclusive category. Recent bite force calculations using a medium-sized T-Rex specimen yielded a figure of 48,000 newtons, enough to crush bone. Not every bite would have this much force, but you get the point. Tyrannosaurus was truly perfectly adapted for direct confrontations, even against members of its species, as Brown 2022 established. Face biting on the skull was very common in Tyrannosaurs, and T-Rex didn't even object to biting the horns of Triceratops if necessary. The tusks of the American mastodon, while long, curved up and inward or far outward, putting them at a poor angle to counter a similarly sized, nimble predator. That's for a one-on-one scenario, but what about when mastodons move in groups? We don't know much about their social structure, so we assume they behaved similarly to forest elephants. Bulls would leave the herd when young and travel alone, while mothers would protect and guide the herd to resource-rich areas. Suddenly, instead of predators only growing large enough to threaten the young, the landscape is thick with different predators, from half-ton dromaeosaurs to 10-ton tyrannosaurs, and proboscideans would be a desirable meal at every stage of their life. Size would no longer be a viable defense, and they would need to stick together to survive. The thing is, multi-ton herd animals are nothing new to large theropods. Edmontosaurus, at 5 to 11 tons as adults, moved in herds of hundreds or even more and were still preyed upon. While the dilution strategy reduces the likelihood of any individual being picked off, it provides many options for predators to target the weak, young, injured, and old. As discussed earlier, even relatively small predators like lions can split up elephant herds and attempt to flee. Combine the firepower of 40 lions on a single animal, and you have Sioux. We can't forget the possibility of pack hunting, and not just for Saurophaganax. Albertosaurus, Teratophonius, and Daspletosaurus have all been found in bone beds of different individuals, from juveniles to large adults. Trackways in Canada also prove 3 tyrannosaurs moved together. While this hasn't yet happened with Tyrannosaurus, the fact that it is recorded for multiple other tyrannosaurids suggests its plausibility. Modern crocodilian cooperative hunting, advanced as herding fish into ambushes and taking turns attacking the group, suggests that pack behavior was within the behavioral range for theropods. Even eliminating the possibility of deliberate, planned hunting techniques, packs of giant carnivores like mastodons or gomphotheres would attract a lot of attention from multiple large-bodied predators. Pack behavior was likely and would have similar impacts on proboscideans. If a single Tyrannosaurus is psychologically devastating, a group of them is a nightmare. Can we call a pack of T-Rexes a nightmare? I'm making that a thing if it isn't already. Let me know if the comments have already named it, but I'm going with nightmare. The ecological impact of multiple giant carnivores would be enormous. Elephants breed slowly and may not keep up with the sudden influx of predators they aren't adapted to handle. They would be pressured at every stage of ontogeny by different species, and growing to adult size wouldn't guarantee safety when dealing with predators as large as they are, or larger. Since there were many proboscidean species across North America during the Miocene, some might adapt to different niches to survive, like shrinking down and fleeing to rivers, or even growing larger to use size as a valid defense once again. This would spark its own coevolutionary arms race. For a video exploring a similar concept in detail, check out Madly Mesozoic series on the topic. He did a great job speculating on how proboscideans would adapt to the presence of theropods, so I won't go into it here. The final word on Miocene large animal populations. Proboscideans are huge, tough, and intelligent, but they would undoubtedly struggle if there were suddenly a lot of large predators capable of hunting them. Group protection and social cohesion would help keep them alive and stable enough for the battlecruiser theropods to use them as a reliable food source without wiping them out. We're about to hit the Ice Age. Brace yourselves. The Pliocene lasted from 5 to 2.6 million years ago, a blink of an eye compared to the vast stretches of time we've covered so far. Its global average temperature was around 18 degrees Celsius, slightly cooler than the Mesozoic, but not by much. The Rocky Mountains were beginning to rise, transforming Western America into a rugged mountain range, while the rest of the continent was a mix of temperate forests, grasslands, prairies, and deserts, much like a warmer version of today. Mastodons and Gomphothers were still here. Hornless rhinos, aphalops, were snacks. Machairodonts, saber-tooths, and wolves could seriously compete with smaller theropods, if not outright outclass them in many aspects. The highly advanced pack behavior of wolves in particular would be crucial in defending against large dromaeosaurs, which have no evidence of such tactics. Machairodonts were giant wrestling cats, built to brawl, and the largest could duel with Utahraptor. Eremotherium was a giant ground sloth that might have been a less than ideal target. Weighing 4 to 5 tons and heavily armed, it would be too dangerous for any mid-range theropod not adapted to hunting with equivalent weapons. Those large enough to overpower it had easier targets in medium-sized proboscideans. Glyptotherium would probably be fine. No theropod small enough to want to bother. It was equipped to handle that kind of armor. Horses diversified and reached modern sizes in the Pliocene, and once again, they were fast enough that only mid-sized tyrannosaurs would care. Honestly, not much changed from the Miocene, except that smaller theropods had a harder time with the intense competition that had evolved in their size range. We're here, the final and hardest level. The Pleistocene ranged from 2.6 million to 10,000 years ago, starting at regular temperatures and then plunging into the Ice Age. Glaciers moved up and down the northern hemisphere in cycles lasting thousands of years, and the cold selected for large animals to rise to dominance. Large body size allowed for better temperature regulation and food preservation, both valuable assets during the Ice Age. Global average temperatures fell to 8 degrees Celsius, with some regions in North America averaging as low as 14 below pre-industrial levels. This is the first time climate would be a significant issue for theropods. The extinction of native animals in North America may have partly been due to food shortages from glacial coverage in the late Pleistocene, which would especially affect carnivores. The Pleistocene was extremely similar to our modern world in terms of fauna, but it had spicier versions of animals. You've got black and grizzly bears, deer, sheep, and bison, and then you glitch the matrix with animals like the American lion, even bigger than the African variety. Camels, glyptodonts, saber-tooths, and horses were still around, and truly giant bears like Arctodus would give anything smaller than Albertosaurus a hard time. Mastodons were still around, joined by woolly mammoths and Columbian mammoths, averaging between 8 and 11 tons. Suddenly, the battlecruiser theropods have their pick of the litter, and as the environment cools, they would adapt to suit it. I spoke with paleontological legend Thomas Holtz about how theropods would handle this type of climate. He said that the old fuzzy genes might activate in response to dropping temperatures, so we might see fuzzy theropods. He also referenced Nanooksaurus to say that theropods could handle low temperatures like those in southern Alaska. That region ranged from 21 degrees Celsius in summer to minus 17 degrees Celsius in colder winters. Large theropods were even better equipped to handle the cold thanks to high surface area-to-volume ratios, insulating them effectively. Their active metabolisms wouldn't be compromised either. As millennia passed, theropods would grow larger and fuzzier, continuing to hunt the suite of large animals available and building greater resistance to the increasing cold. But in the final Ice Age glacial maximum, something new and deadly appeared: humans. The exact timing of Homo sapiens' arrival in North America is a point of contention. Recent pollen dating inside human footprints from New Mexico suggests arrival over 20,000 years ago, and climate simulations for when the land bridge between Russia and Alaska could have been crossed say that 25,000 or 16,000 years ago were optimal. No one knows for sure when they arrived, but the earliest we know humans were using weapons in North America was over 15,000 years ago at Cooper's Ferry, Idaho. Their toolkit included fire and spears with stone points, and they used them to kill and eat animals as large as horses. Could theropods survive the next 5,000 years into the end of the Pleistocene and the end of this video? The North America these first people entered would be radically different from the timeline we experienced. In this new world, giant cats were still happily chewing on them. But there were also shaggy dragons 50 times the size of any predator they'd met at home. Experimental Clovis weapons testing on elephants in the 1980s revealed how effective they were against mammoths, so humans would begin competing with giant theropods for the same food sources. As mentioned in the Africa episode, even modern spear hunting cultures still suffer heavy casualties hunting elephants. Those problems would be exacerbated when the region also housed multiple agile predators the size of houses, many of whom might hunt in packs. Consider this by using the North American grizzly bear. According to HughGlass.org, when the Mandan tribe told explorers Lewis and Clark how they hunted grizzlies, they recounted traveling and hunting parties of 8 to 10 men and painting themselves for war as with an enemy tribe. That's how dangerous a bear was to a far more advanced culture than those first encountering theropods. Think of a pack of a dozen Albertosaurus, twice as fast as most humans and twice the size of the largest prehistoric bear, with an armored stomach on the underside. Fortunately, battlecruiser theropods were unlikely to focus on humans as a food choice, preferring mammoth meat over skinny primates. If a lone megatheropod decided to chase after a hunting group for any reason, humans would have been able to defend themselves fairly well. There are more Clovis mammoth kill sites in the U.S. than elephant kill sites in all of Africa, suggesting that the Clovis people were super specialized big game hunters among humans, but any confrontation with megatheropods would risk crippling the group. The safest way to deal with a true giant would be to track its hunts and scavenge the mammoth carcasses it left in its wake, letting it do the work. Smaller pack hunters like Teratophonius would be much more dangerous to humans, possibly overwhelming with a combination of ferocity, speed, and numbers. Perhaps this monster world would force North American humans to make an early shift from hunting and gathering to an agricultural lifestyle, building settlements with defenses that the dragons of ice wouldn't care to attack. That might allow them to come together and build societies large and complex enough to face the dominant dinosaurs outside. But considering how agriculture in North America didn't develop until after the mass megafaunal extinction, they may not grow to reach that point while under existential threat. Theropods would be widespread by this point, ranging from bear-sized to mammoth-sized, and the land bridge between North and South America had been opened since the Pliocene. As glaciers encroached, some theropod populations would have moved south to warmer climates, though that's a video for another time. It's unlikely that humans or theropods would have driven each other to extinction in the Pleistocene. The truly giant ones would have no reason to attack humans, and humans would benefit from tracking their hunts and scavenging from their kills. Spears might be powerful defenses against more aggressive species, but humans would have been on the defensive for a long time against such dangerous, active, and numerous predators. I'd say both groups could survive until the end of the Pleistocene, as they developed an awareness of the danger the other posed. Imagine the stories ancient hunters would tell around the campfire, warning the young about the thundering monsters lurking just outside. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more specific ecology videos like this one and comment with your thoughts. Thanks to paleontologists Thomas Holtz and Evan Johnson Ranzo-M for assisting with the research for this episode, especially on climate and elephant interactions. I work hard to make every video better than the last, so thanks to everyone for the feedback and thoughtful comments. Join the channel to get loyalty badges and other perks, including early access to videos at the Mega Theropod tier or higher. I'll see you next time.